Okay, start recording. So the first lesson is about business environment. I was speaking earlier in the introduction that business environment is wherever you found yourself as a manager, where you're operating in your field. That aspect where you are operating in your field is your environment. And your environment include the people, your environment include the organization policy, your environment include the organization procedure, your environment include the way of working, the doors, where the door is, where the exits are, the parking lot, the security, the roles, the organization structure. All those are business environment. And then if you are working in an environment like healthcare or government environment, they have what we call external environment as well. Those external environment is like legal aspect that align to the compliance. You have to do certain things in compliance. Those are the environment. Now, for this lesson, business environment is we're going to talk about the foundation of business environment, the strategic alignment to that environment, the project benefit and value, organizational culture and change management, project governance and project compliance. These are the area of business environment you're going to focus on, not only on the aspect of the exam purpose, but aspect on when you're practicing as a project manager. Working into an organization, first thing I wanted to find out is, do they have a vision statement somewhere? Do they have a website? Where can I go to learn about their strategic alignment? So the project I'm about to embark on or to start or that I'm going to take over, so I will be able to find a way to align myself to that project. That is the purpose of that strategic alignment. Your project you're going to be doing is part of the organization objective, somewhere aligned to the portfolio of the organization. So you have to find a way to align to it. If I'm going to a direction of A and the organization is going to a direction of B, obviously I'm going to get fired soon because I'm not aligning to the organization objective, with the direction of that organization. So you have to get yourself familiar and align yourself to the direction of the organization. That is the purpose of this business environment. Then after that, we're going to talk about business benefits. Why do I need to align to the strategic alignments? Why do I need to align to the organization strategy or goals or dream or vision of the organization? It's because of the value of the organization it's all about. If you work for a nonprofit organization, they work to serve specific scope of their operation. Some organizations focus on servicing people or giving them free resources. And if you're working for a profit organization, their value is based on giving financial value to their stakeholders, their investors, increasing the profit of the organization, expanding the organization, reaching out to more customers. Whatever that definition of that value is based on, you need to familiar with those things before you actually embark your project, because those are the foundation that will contribute to the success of your project as a project manager. Another thing you wanted to focus on is called organization culture. Organizational culture is what and how organizations operate. And that includes people, the way of working, the procedure processes, or whatever organization, how they communicate, their leadership approach. How do they hire? How do they conduct hiring process? Those are your organization approach. Someone is okay. Awesome. All right. Those are your organization culture. And then other aspect of organization culture is what we call change management. Change management is you coming in as a project manager, you are a change agent, because the aspect of your project is all about managing a result, managing outcome, managing benefit, managing value. So you are an agent of change as a project manager. So I want you guys to think about that. This is your foundation knowledge as a project manager. You wanted to understand these rudiments of business environments. The other aspect is called project governance. I'm going to go in details, but I just want to give you this is more like brief. So when I get there, I will talk over it. So project and governance is saying you as a project manager, we have multiple projects within that organization called programs. Let's say my business is real estate construction business. I fix houses, I flip houses, and I have multiple projects. So if I have multiple projects, I have different project managers for different properties. One for townhome, one for single family, one for multi-unit, one for commercial. All that together is my portfolio. Each project itself is like a program because within that program, I have multiple projects there. I have to do plumbing, I have to do electrical, I have to do construction, I have to do drywall, I have to do painting, I have to do cleaning, I have to do venting, all those detail HVAC system. Those are individual projects on their own, but entails in the entirety aspect of it is the program for that townhome. And if I have multiple of that, I have multiple program. And if I have multiple program, that means I have a portfolio. And my portfolio will be called housing portfolio because I have multiple of them. And that is my portfolio because it has multiple program, different locations. So now governance of that is how do I approach it? How do I fix things? What is the way of, how do I pay my workers? How do I hire or find talent? How do I guide their steps? How do I do inspection to make sure we are in compliance with the government? We are in compliance with sales. We are in compliance with real estate brokerage aspect. Those are the aspects, and you can apply this to other industry. The healthcare, you can apply it to the healthcare. If I have an hospital, you have a portfolio because within that hospital, you have different programs. They have different services, outpatient, inpatient, acute patients for small primary care, all those details. You wanted to do scanning, CAT scan, all that. Those are programs on their own because within that you have projects, and you have to have a way of guiding your workers on how to do their work. That's what we call governance. Now, project compliance is basically saying within my project, these are the 10 steps I need to follow in order to give value, and I need to comply to that. Moment I decided to do only 6 out of 10, I'm not in compliance, and that's what's called non-compliance. So all these together is your business environment. If I master this aspect very well, I'm going to be very well in the right path as a project manager and to be successful. So now let's dip. Any questions so far?
I have a question, Mr. T. Are we going to have this deck sent to us or no?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm going to skip because I'll mostly talk about it and then we're going to just talk more. So for a project, what is project? Basically, a project is something that is unique and it has value and it's a product or it's either a service that have a timeline, it has a purpose, what we call scope, and it give value at the end of the day. So what I'm doing with you guys now is a project. This class is a project. You know why? It has a value, and the value is to train you to become a project manager and also to be satisfied as a PMP. And that is a value. It has a start date, which is today, and we have specific time, and it's driven because I'm transitioning you from where you are to become a project manager. And that's a driven with a change. And now enable value to create a business organization because you are now going to be enabled and empowered with a skill set, with a tool set to become a project manager. And this is the purpose of project. So any project you think about is anytime someone say, I have a project, make sure that project has a timeline. It has a unique value and it has unique delivery. And they has those values to make sure you actually have a project. If those things is not aligning, then you don't have a project. You have what we call operation, which is more like you have a task. You know, any questions so far? So for you to be successful as a project manager, every project have organization, and organization have way of operating, which is what we talk about way of working earlier. So you also need your team, you need collaboration, you need communication, you need to relate to people to be able to run your day-to-day aspect of your project. As I said earlier, PMI has been around since the early 60s, 1969. So they are the organization that monitor and institute project management professional certifications. They are globally known, and anywhere you take your certification to, you can use it to work. For project management life cycle and development approach. So for the educational purpose, let me first of all address the life cycle. We will have what we call project group or project phases, and that phases break the life cycle of the project. As we discussed earlier, we have what we call initiating. That's one group right there. It's one life cycle. Some can call it phases. So that life cycle is, I'm going to initiate a project. Why? Because I have a specific problem or business case I need to address. And that is your initiation. And like we're talking now, we're starting a project. I'm starting a project because I have an objective, I have a goal, I have something to deliver, and I have a budget, and I have a power, what we call charter, to empower me to run that project. That's the first phase. And after that phase, if you are successful, the organization may have what we call phase gate. Phase gates, sometimes you can call it toll gate. You can call it hand point or killing point. It's basically to see from the initiation aspect, the result of the initiation, do we have sufficient reason to proceed to the next phase? Or should we kill this project right now because it's like a waste of time? And at that phase, you decide and move to the next stage or phase. And that phase is called planning. Then when you start planning, you plan multiple things like the scope of your project, the time of your project, the quality of your project, the risk management of your project, the communication of your project, the procurement of your project, what do I forget? The cost, which is the budget aspect of your project. And all those things involve planning. And this is where you will now see how much do you budget for this project, how much the resources that are available for this project. All that details will be done in your planning phase. And if you are successful in your planning phase, then you might have another thing called planning gate to kind of assess, do we have enough to move forward? And then you move forward to execution, which is the next phase. Now, executing is when now you're executing your plan. Based on your plan, you start executing cycle by cycle. Now, during your executing, you have another phase that will lead you to another phase that you can simultaneously do the same time while you're executing. Is called monitoring and control. Monitoring to see if what you are doing is in compliance, you are aligning to the governance, you are aligning to the strategic goals, you are doing things according to expectation of customers, things are going how it's supposed to go, workers are doing what they're supposed to be doing. Those are monitoring. Now, control is when things are going out of line, you have to get them back in line. And that is control aspect. That's where you become directive. You might then utilize your coaching skills, mentoring skills to kind of get people back in line. This is where your power skill come in place, which is what we're talking about, emotional intelligence. And this is where you're gonna realign and put things back to order. And then the next stage is what we call close phase. And that's where you actually now say, oh, this project is either successful or failed, or we're just going to close it because it comes from the order, from the above, or whatever. Maybe government say stop work order. You know, I recently have a stop work order on one of my sites because I'm not in compliance with the government in that county. I have to stop work. So that stopped me until I get my building permit and then continue work. Those are the things you have to know when it comes to project phases. So now talking about development approach. For this purpose of this class, we're going to talk about agile development, which is what we call a more or less in IT industry, to be specific. the focus of the exam aligning or geared toward IT. However, you can use development approach in every aspect. Like I was saying, there are certain industry, agile is not 100% applicable. You still have to use your predictive approach, like construction, like aeronautic aspect or automobile, all those industry, you cannot 100% use agile because it's not going to work. But when you utilize them together with agility, which is more adaptiveness to change in the certain area of that organization or business operation that is applicable, then you apply them when it's necessary. So the purpose of this is to introduce you to that aspect of project lifecycle versus deliverable development approach. Now, for development approach for this class, for the purpose of this class, is two: is predictive and adaptive. Predictive and adaptive. Now, there's another name for both of them. Predictive is also what we call waterfall. So waterfall is like water is falling from the top, you go to the next step, and you go to the next step. It's like a step, you go to the next step. That's a waterfall approach. That means if I don't do step one, I can't go to step two. If I don't finish step two, I can't go to step three. That is a waterfall approach. And that's what I was talking about. Some industry, they have no choice but to go through waterfall. Like aeroplane, if you build an aeroplane, you can't do adaptive 100%. You have to do waterfall. If you are building a house, you can't do adaptive nature. You have to do waterfall. And then make adjustment when it's necessary, apply adaptive in some area. So when you're doing IT is very fluid and flexible because it's intrinsic. It's not something you can physically grab. It's a that's why they call it software. It's a software. But when you're dealing with hardware, that means something physical, something you can touch. You have to do them in order. I cannot build this table by just, first of all, build something that I cannot stand on. I have to build certain things before I can build it. So that's why you have to know where it's applicable. This is where your project management skill set applicable. It's called way of working. So you have to know in this way of working for that specific project or for that other project, if I'm the healthcare or automobile or supply chain, which one is more applicable to that specific job or specific work I'm doing? Am I making sense so far? So there's another keyword I want us to be familiar with today. It's called project management office. If you notice, this is very common in big organization. Big organization, they have a unit called a project management office. Is where everything is centralized. If you go to some healthcare, they call them coordinators. They kind of spreading this job to this one, assign this job. Oh, who is the nurse available to this one? Go to this site, go to that site, align to this. Those are coordinators. So project management office in a project management structure industry, it works the same way. They distribute, they organize, they direct, they control, they provide standard. So the same way is project management office. So I want you to think about project management office in that aspect. So think about project management office that give direction, that give control, that give advice or training. Like if you come in on board, HR is very common. They coming on board, they have centralized way to do onboarding for you. They can do onboarding in group, they can do onboarding like in the big size, and they apply the same method across. So everyone goes through the same channel to come in. Likewise, you go through the same channel and sharing tasks. So that is the concept of project management office. They are in charge of multiple projects within the organization to make sure things are aligning in compliance and following order as supposed to. Organization project management, you can see some on the screen. Like I was saying about, I have a vision and I strategize them into different portfolio. I'm using a housing for an example. Let's say my project A is housing for townhome. Project B is housing for single family. Project C is housing for multi-family. So That is a portfolio, different portfolio for different projects. You can align that. You see big organization. You may apply to banks. You may apply to public sector like government. They have parasisters. They have agencies. They have different departments. Those are what we call portfolio level. If I have organization, you have finance. That finance is a portfolio. You have organization that have IT. That IT is a portfolio. You have organization that have operational support. That's a portfolio. In them, they have projects, which is activities, series of activities that needs to be done in certain time and with a specific unique result. So I already spoke about this from portfolio level to program level and then the project. Portfolio is the series of projects, project or programs that are correlated to each other. If like I was saying about finance within organization, they have series of finance program and projects within that finance. And you have IT, they have IT structure whereby they have portfolio for infrastructure, they have portfolio for cloud, they have portfolio for physical hardware to support their system, they have computer support, they have help support. So those are the portfolio level. So when you get into organization, they say, oh, and these are portfolio investment, these are program director, these are project manager. It's basically saying what I'm saying. Is saying from the project level, your level is specific to a project. For program level, you are a manager to project managers. For portfolio level, you are a manager to program managers and project managers. So that's kind of like organization. In portfolio level, you can see organizations call themselves like vice president for finance, something like that. You will see someone that's called them director of nursing. If you see something like that, you are talking about portfolio level. They handle multiple programs. Now, on the program level, you can see clinical manager for nursing. Or in the IT level, you can see program IT project manager. So different titles at different level. So that is the focus on these aspects. So organization function differently. When you're now talking about project within organization, there are 4 aspects, but mainly actually 3, but the composite is basically saying everything in one package. Now, function means I'm a company that do banking services. I give loans, I service loan. That's my business. Now, that's my functional aspect. I can still hire a project manager to help me manage loan applications. That means to give loans. And I also can have another project manager that help me manage my loan servicing, that will monitor all the servicing, making sure all the bills are paid on time from the lenders, from the borrowers. So on the functional level, you have a manager that manages those things. But on the project aspect, you might now have IT services that support your loan servicing or your bank, your loan making aspect. Likewise on other industry. So when you're now doing functional, you have to work with functional manager that is in charge of that functional manager in order to able to do your project. So that's where collaboration, because functional manager are the owner of that unit. So you have to consult that functional manager to work with them. You will see this approach is like, if you are a nurse, independent nurse, you are independent contractor. So when someone hire you within the agency, you have to work with that owner of the agency that owns the agency. And you also have to work with the partner you're going to service on that agency. So this is where functional aspects click with the project manager. Now, matrix is basically saying within an organization, you choose a project manager within, let's say I have a nursing program, or if I have a banking industry, I have a bankers. I would choose banker, one of my SMEs, subject matter experts, to manage a specific project that just come up, maybe for us to comply to EPA, to comply to new law that just came out from the Congress or whatever it is. So that person will manage that. That is a matrix. So the matrix is combination. Now, projectized oriented is mostly saying we are a complete consulting company. I have a consulting company and I manage all my projects. So that's the project focus. I am my own manager. I don't report to functional manager, and I don't report to anybody just because I'm an independent consultant. So projectized structure is like that. Now, composite basically saying in a big organization, you can have functional aspect, matrix, or projectized. So you apply them when it is necessary. Any questions so far? Are we comprehendo?
No, yeah, comprendo.
All right.
Very clear, very crystal clear. Thank
Okay.
you.
Awesome. So I already talked about it. I'm going to move faster and move forward.
Quick question, bro, Mr. T.
Yeah.
All these that we can still access it again, right?
Yes,
I
I
need
will make the
something.
video. I'll
Yeah.
make the video available. Yes.
Okay. All right, sir. Thank you, sir.
That's why I'm recording them separately. So for project management principle, they have 12 principles according to PMI. But every time you hear me say PMI, they are the standard practice, what we call standard best practice. If you practice as a professional, there's a board that control your licensing or certification. Likewise, for project management, PMI is like a board that control the licensing, giving license practices out. Likewise, for every aspect of organization that you require licensure or certifications or permits, there's a unit that control that. Like I was talking about my project, there's a county within that where the property exists, I have to go get building permits. So all those has a principle that have to apply. But for the purpose of project management, they have these 12 principles. I wish I'm not going to go in details. I just want you to see. But the principle is basically to help you as a project manager to practice to make it as your own ethics of way of working. So it's like every organization that have professionality have an ethics, professional ethics. You have to, to show that you're a professional. Like a doctor, as a doctor, you have to have a specific ethics of practice. So as project manager, there's an ethics of practice. So be diligent, respectful, and caring. Caring is basically saying servicing others, looking out for your clients, looking out for your employee, recognize them, look into complexity, navigate, find a way around them. Don't just say, oh, this job is too hard, I can't do it. That's not the project management. Find a way to know the root cause and find a solution and create a collaboration, work with other leadership, look for risk and find a way to manage the response to that risk. Get engaged, tailor your environment to what you are doing and the tools you have, the resources you have, focus on value, all those things. Those are the ethics and principle as a project manager to be a professional practitioner as a PMP. Now, we now want to apply these principles into what we call project performance domain. Now, let me speak on the domain in the language that will make sense, not in this language. This domain is basically saying, how do you measure my performance? If you hire me to be a consultant for your company, where do you measure my performance? So basically, if you hire me, I say, my class is $1,800 or $2,000 to take PMP class for 2 weekends. So how do you know I'm able to deliver that? I have a schedule. I will give it to you. I have names of people that registered. I have the structure ready to go. And I have the value delivery in form of video and text and materials. I plan the delivery of that into 6 lessons. I have approach. I'm going to deliver that to you, which is going to be explainable, demonstrating, and also showing how it's been applied. And then what is uncertainty, which means what could go wrong? My system can go wrong. You may not be available. Guess what? That's why I'm recording. So if you're unable to attend now, maybe your system go out, something happen, emergency, you can still come back and manage that. So basically, that's what this 8 domains is talking about. Now let's talk about it briefly. So you as a PM, you wanted to start a project. Where do you start out of these performance? I will start from stakeholders. Stakeholders is why you are there. If a company establish a company and they are profit organization, without investors, there's no money. And without investors or without the customers that will buy your products, there's no business. Apple company would not exist without someone like me, someone like you buying the phone, buying the Apple Mac, all those things. And without their investors, they were able to produce it and sell it to me. So these are the stakeholders. They have stake in your project. Stake is basically saying, I have interest. My interest could be direct interest or indirect interest. So when you start as a project, when you start the project management or as a project manager, you want to focus your first performance domain on the stakeholders by identifying them. Who are they? What is their need? And how could I meet and manage their expectations? After you decided that, the next thing you wanted to find out is, okay, now I'll know what the stakeholders is all about. What do they want? And that was, I will already talk about it, which is delivery. They want a result. You want to deliver it to this class. I'm doing it right now. It's called delivery, the value. I'm giving you a value. And now, for me to do that, I have to have a team, which is myself. So, which is team, to deliver that value to you. So for me to deliver that value, I need a supporting system called team. Now, for me to do that, in order once I bring all this team to in, I have to have a measure again. How do I manage this team before I bring them in? It's called planning. I have to plan out to do it. I'm going to do my classes on weekends, Saturday and Sunday, specific time. And then what is my approach of delivering that? I'm going to use Microsoft Teams to deliver that. And I'm going to set it up online. And that's development approach lifecycle. Then you go to the next and say, okay, I have a team, I have a stakeholder, I know their value. Now, what is next for me? Let me execute, which is what I'm doing right now. It's called project work. I'm doing the work. I'm delivering. I'm doing the work. Now, after you're doing the work, how will you know I'm successful? How will you know I had value to you? Is measure my performance. Do you capture what I'm saying? Is it making sense? Am I using jargons that is not making sense to you? Or am I trying to relate to you the way you could able to relate to me so I can make sense to you? This is where you do measurement. And you do measurement in two forms, quantitative or qualitative approach, which is what we're going to discover about quality control. Now, then you take it to the next as uncertainty. This is where if something goes wrong, or after the class, I couldn't I can't remember everything I heard. I wanted to go back. I have a recording somewhere to address that. So that's uncertainty or something that could go wrong. Then that actually entirely cover 8 performance domain. If you as a project manager apply this to every aspect of what you do, you can see, you can measure everything you are doing. You can measure the performance. And then you can say, yay or nay, you are doing well, or you need to improve. Any questions so far? So for agile, which is adaptive approach, right? There's a principle I'm going to address. That principle has what we call 4 values. It's similar to the project management principle. They align that principle into what we call agile manifesto. There are a group of people that collectively developed this principle early 90s. And these people are practice agile in a different way. They now come up with some value, we call it 4 values. And I'm going to address those 4 values. Those 4 values is basically saying, let's say I go to a company. They say, for me to apply for a loan, you must have a business plan. If you don't have a business plan and you don't have these things going on for you, you can't get the loan. That's what we call process and tools. They focus on the tools. That's definitely that side has value because they wanted to make sure they what is the word for you? They underwrite you appropriately to make sure you are qualified for that position. However, Agile is saying no. Let's become human being first. Let's think about these people. What is their need? Let's find a way to make it flexible and interact with them. Then we can now say, okay, here's the process that will make it work and the tool to make it work. So the principle is here saying individual and interaction first before you think over process and tools. You go to organization, you call their customer service. I wanted to return the item I bought 30 days ago. They said it's not according to our policy. You can't come in. But organization will say, some organizations that understand interaction and individual to grow their customer base, they will say, bring it in. We might not be able to give you money, but we can give you store credit. That is adaptability. You adapt to change. You welcome change. You don't limit people into the box mindset. And that's what that first value was focusing on. Now, the other one saying, oh, before you apply for a loan, you must have all your document ready. If you don't apply. It's like saying for you to attend my class, you must have 4 years degree, you must have this. And I didn't find a way to make it work for everyone that attend. Like Temitokwe, you and I just discussed this morning, and you talked to me about, you and I have a conversation about joining my class, and I said, oh, okay, I immediately forward you the class. Isn't so?
Yeah.
And that is an example of what I'm talking about. You focus on something that works for us, add value, and find a way to work things around. And likewise for project management, you find a way to make things work. And that's the area of saying, instead of focusing on following our procedure, make payment, make comprehensive documentation, how about let's find a way to give you value, working software. Go use it. Tell us how you feel. If it makes sense, then you can pay us. And this is why most of organizations have what we call free trials. If you buy stuff, they say you have 30 days. After 30 days, no question asked, nothing has, you have guarantee, just return it if it doesn't work. That's a money back guarantee approach. And that's with the same concept of Agile. Am I making sense so far? Now, another concept, value, is say, let's collaborate with our customers. If customer is returning, they are returning for a reason. I created a product, I put it on Amazon, and I start reading the feedback from people. I have some good feedback and I have some bad feedback. And I start assessing, I'm seeing things from the customer perspective. They are looking for specific things because they see the value in what I deliver, but they want more. And I'm now considering applying that feedback in my next release, and that is collaboration. So you don't want to that collaboration over contract negotiation. Basically saying, oh, I have to change your contract, or since you already paid, you can't give me feedback. I don't care what about you, what you think. That's what basically saying that both sides had value, but let's focus on collaboration. Now, the last one say corresponding to change, which is very similar to every one of them. And instead of saying, I'm going to follow my plan, rather than saying, oh, okay, what is the change you want? Let's go back and make those changes. So now every changes may cost you something, but at least be flexible to welcome those changes and welcome communication, which is collaboration, to make it work. And the same thing I just talked about, those principles is apply, customer satisfaction, welcome change, deliver working software, working together on a daily basis, building a project around motivated individuals, work face to face. These are the same principle I'll just talk over. The next one is say, measure your progress, focus on delivery, maintain constant pace in the and then to technical excellence, gather and hire the right people to help you design a good result, a good product to your customers. Maximize value. Focus on what that works, and what that does not work, try to remove them. Is called streamlining. And then make things work efficiently. We wanted to have a team that is self-organizing, self-reliant, self-maintaining. So you don't need to be a micromanager as a project manager. You want it to be flexible. Give people their tasks and tell them when it's due and let them do their work. Don't sit on their neck. And let them know that you have open door policy if they have questions. So this is what we call self-organizing team. And then team reflecting. Allow team to reflect on what they did well, what they need to improve, and to give them the tools to help them progress. Now, another thing I want to talk about here is called tailor project to context. It's also the same what we've been saying about way of working. Way of working is basically saying I have different tools, adaptive, predictive, what is applicable in what aspect. So now the word for it is how do I tailor? It's like, you know how tailor measure you? Your measurement is different from another person's measurement. And that's where the organization environment is matter. The way you work in company A, even though they're the same banking industry, they might be different in other companies. So don't use one size fit all approach. You wanted to tailor your approach to different customer, different units, different organization. And this is the purpose of tailor project to context. So according to the project scope, you tailor your result to align to it. All right, so that complete that aspect. Everything I've talked about so far is what we call fundamental, business fundamental, which is business environment. Now we want to talk about strategic alignment, which I already give you brief for the strategic alignment. So for strategic alignment, they want you to understand these three areas, which I already talked about: way of working, power, skills, and acumen. Way of working is basically mastering your tools, your skill set as a project management. You understand adaptive, which is agile. You understand waterfall, which is predictive approach. We were talking about that earlier. And the power skills is your interpersonal skills to have a ability to communicate, to lead team, as in a what we call stewardness, not to be a micromanager, to give them ability to influence, to inspire people. And then business acumen is have knowledge of what you're doing and know how to decide and align yourself to the organization structure. We were talking about business strategy earlier. So when you are talking about business strategy and aligning to it, you need to think about the vision of the organization, mission, objectives, and then they have strategic goals that will help you plan things in accordance. And that is what your project you're going to be managing is going to align to. Knowledge of this is going to make you better as a project manager. So as I already said it, so vision, mission statements, aligning to the organization structure, portfolio, basically everything I've been saying. This is our layout framework. I already briefly mentioned this earlier, but let me put more flesh to what I said already. If you get to business environment, and you work in an environment, or you hire as a project manager in a healthcare or finance or construction, whatever industry, they have environment before you got there. They have a way of working before you got there. They have a culture, they have a policy they have to comply to, they have procedure, they have template, they have history of how they work. This is the first thing you have to master to know in order to influence change in that organization. Because you as a project manager, I was saying earlier, you're a change agent because you bring value and you wanted to implement that value. And for you to influence, you have to understand the internal and external environment of the organization. And we call it enterprise environmental factor. For enterprise environmental factor, we're basically saying, if I am in a healthcare, I have to comply with healthcare law, like EPA law, like COPRA law, all this law that govern the healthcare. If I'm in a finance, I have to comply with GAAP accounting system, comply with stock exchange, all these financial law or monetary policies or government policies that are governed monetary. That is the external aspect, but the internal with the organization, they also have policy, procedure, how they operate. And then the other aspect to influence is called internal organization process asset. I was saying earlier, every organization have a way to work. If you hired to organization today, you do what we call orientation, you do onboarding, and those are the procedure, those are the process to get you in to get you more accurate to the environment. So once you now know your environment, you now know how to operate. This is now your first day is like you storming through things, and then a couple of weeks after that, you normalize. You notice every time you change job, not right away you start applying things, but they kind of have you to meet this one, introduce you to this one. It's basically saying let you get comfortable to the organization structure and know the environment. Now you cannot execute, you cannot make things, you cannot make changes. Any questions so far?
No.
All right. So now I already speak about this, but you can use these acronyms to guide you as a project manager. You come in, and these acronyms are even way better when you're starting a project or planning a project or managing a project. These acronyms is helping you as a project manager to create plan and to create plan and to execute a plan. Now, if my organization involve politics, I work for government, and my organization involve heavy politics, and because we have political appointees, and political appointees, they are driven by political lobbies, and they have political agenda. So political agenda override business objectives sometimes. So you have to know your environment. And then if you think about that, there's economical aspect, which is monetary. It could be people, it could be resources. Those are economical aspect. Now, social culture is how people interact within themselves, interrelate what is the leadership approach and how they are structured together. The technical aspect, the skill set as a project manager or developer, management, all those have to comply, consider why you are planning your project, considering your project, starting your project, monitoring your project. And the legal aspect, which is the compliance, the environment aspect also could be compliance. And TECO is pretty much similar, VOCA is very similar. And now, in addition to that, if I'm dealing with external aspects, you wanted to do comparative analysis. If I'm buying a house, if you notice there's appraisal aspect before you buy, before you close. And that is what is done by comparing the other houses that's been sold to see what is the value of what I'm paying versus what am I paying? Am I within the value, or am I not overpaying or underpaying? Do I have equity in the property? That is comparative advantage, and you do comparative analysis. Now, comparative advantage is basically saying, what give me hedge over this company? What give me advantage over this option? If I have 2, 3 different business options, and I want to make sure that project A, B, C, which one should I pursue? You will use comparative analysis to do your analysis. And feasibility study is very similar. Before you start a project, you get it back in a big project. You wanted to do study, how the people did it in the past, what is the benefit, what is the cost, what do you need to look into, and how could you start it, what is the minimum budget. Now, that's a feasibility study. The feasibility study give you similar to historical information as well. SWOT is examining the strength, weakness, opportunity, and threat that could impact your business. This is area where you kind of examine things before you start. Even while you are running, you keep your eyes on this. So get to know your external business environment. Basically, you can use these tools and framework to help you manage your external environment. Every project has external environments, every project. So for the internal environment, which is what I already talked about, You have directors, project manager, project sponsor, project owner, and all these are within your organization. You just need to get to know them. Can we do a quick exercise? Economic demand for new shopping area. Who can tell me which one does it fall on? Is it environmental? I say environmental, sorry. Is it enterprise environment factor or organization process assets? Do we know the difference between organization process asset is something within the organization? EEF is mostly external aspects. So if one say economic demand for a new shopping area sounds like external. So that would be EEF. Historical society, conservation, building regulation. That's also external. We're talking about external regulations. Local neighborhoods, demand for better town center. That's also external. Archive of past large infrastructure project. That's within your organization, you have repository. Approved vendor and contract list. That's within the organization. That's OPA. Tenant selection process, OPA, because that's your process, how you do things, OPA. So this exercise is basically to check your knowledge and see where you are, knowing the difference between enterprise environmental factor and organization process asset. Those two will impact your project success and failure if you do not manage them effectively. Do we need break or should I continue?
I'm okay. I don't know about the rest.
I'll continue. So the next one is benefits and value for a project. Why do you have a project? Why do you start a project? Because of the benefits. Why do they hire a project manager? Someone that will help them drive the value and change the benefit, the value it has to the organization. So let's examine the business value. We talked about earlier that you have a company, they have a stake, which is the interest in the organization. Stake could be directive or indirect. So if you have a direct interest, that means these are like stakeholders. Internally within the organization, they have direct interest. Indirect would be like external, like government agency, county agency, municipals, power, or institution that influence your organization. Those are external factor, which is what we're talking about, EEF. Those enterprise environmental factor. So you have to consider that in your business value. Now, the type of business value could be financial gain for a company that are looking to make a profit, or to increase your customer base, or to increase social benefit. Like if you're giving services, food, clothes to the community, like a nonprofit organization, or first to market, like first to market basically saying, I'm the one that created PMP, I'm the one that creates Facebook, all this, that's value. Improvement, let's change how we apply for loan. Let's change how we apply for job. Let's change how we apply services to end users. That's technology that's innovating across the board. Then regularization, that's alignment. If I have organization within healthcare, I have to be in compliance, consistently changing to compliance, because if inspection comes, I'm not in compliance, they will shut my door down. And those are the business value. All these 6 items create opportunity for project managers. All these 6 items create opportunity for project management. So for organizations seeking to increase their value, they look for someone to help them manage their value. So for you to start a project, you have to assess, which I already said. There is a skill set or a profession called business analyst or business analysis. So business analyst is the person that identify the business value and communicate that business value in documentation to technical teams that will develop the business value. If I have an idea to develop a phone, I'm not a designer and I'm not a programmer. I don't have the skill sets, but I have a specialist, a consultant I can go reach out to, call business analyst. That person will come talk to me, ask questions to examine what are my needs, what do I want to create, what do I want to, I want to have a phone that can make calls, that have app, that can download this detail. The person will document those needs for me and do document those needs in form of what we call deliverables, how those needs going to deliver to me. And then after that, the person is now take that information and deliver it to technical teams that will deliver it. And likewise, for organization, they have idea, they have someone they can consult to help them combine those ideas into a framework or business plan or whatever, and then execute those. And those are what we call business analysis and planning aspects. So while you're doing that, you do your reasoning. Why do I need a project? Do I need a project to start and solve what problem? Well, I was mentioning this value earlier. So do I need to increase my profits for my stakeholders? Do I want it to increase my customer? Do I want it to improve my services? Do I want it to be in alignment to compliance? You have to assess that needs. So based on that needs, we establish what we call scope. We'll give you the scope of what you are doing. So you won't just be everywhere. So once you have a defined scope during your assessment through what we call business case, you have a case, and that will establish a scope for you. And that scope will give you, okay, this case, for me to solve this problem, have a problem statement, and for me to solve, it will cost me such and such amount, and then I will execute with these 3 or 4 people, and this is the head value when it's going to be delivered to me. And that is the assessment. Any question on the assessment? So while you're doing that, I was already talk about I'll talk about documentation. So you collect the information from problem statements or from the clients that are hiring you. Oh, we are servicing our customer. We wanted to meet their needs from 10 to 20. We wanted to increase our service from 5 to 10. Those create needs. I wanted to start a business, it's like a startups, restaurants or whatever. That is a business need to serve who? So you create that using a business case. Business case is documentation that help you justify why you are doing what you are doing. Does it make sense? Can you embark on it? Is it a good investment? So when you have a business case, you want it to have multiple options. And you present that option to your stakeholders or your investors saying, hey, I have these 10 ideas. Out of these 10 ideas, I think these 2, 3 make sense. And how do you assess that, which I'm going to talk about next, is examine those cases and say, okay, project A will give you a return in short time. Project A, B will give you a return in 2 times, and you have more benefits. And you look into timeline, you look into value, quantify them and qualitate them to give you assessment. So for project management purpose, or for, let me say, on assessment purpose as well, in your real life, if I wanted to buy a townhome, I have to look into what we call opportunity cost versus single family. So opportunity cost is basically saying, if I go for townhome instead of single family, what it cost me that I gave up is the single family. That's my opportunity cost. So now there's something else called payback period. Payback period saying, if I invest in trailer, I wanted to have my trailer delivered to Walmart, and Walmart is going to be running my trailer, and they will run that trailer so that they'll be giving me return every month. And I bought that trailer for 60,000, and they'll be giving me 13,000 every month. So that means my payback period for that is 10 times 6 times will give me 60,000. And that I will recover my initial investment in the next 6 months. That is a payback period. So when you have a multiple project, you wanted to decide which one should I justify or should I go first, you can use payback period approach. Say, okay, project A give you your initial investment in 6 months. Project B give you your initial investment in 3 months. The other one give you your initial investment in 1 year. Now, you may not base all your decision by just payback period alone. Even though your initial investment is recovered, sometimes longer project that give you a payback period longer time could be more reasonable than the other short term, because you have to now factor other measurement method, like what is the return on my investment in the next 3-5 years from now. And this is where you now start doing what we call future value, present value, the net value. So I can have a property. If I do rental property and I'm collecting rent in the next 5 years, my property return on my investment might not be right away, but for the longer term, my property will gain equity. So payback period might not be sufficient for me to decide what property I need to invest in, because unless I'm doing investment approach that is called flipping, I buy and I sell within 6 months and I get my money back with profit. That's another approach. So depending on the organization approach or whatever decision or your goal is, then you will determine what approach to assess the value or the benefit for that business. Likewise, as a project, you use this to determine what project do I need to start, what project do I need to ignore, or recommend organization to pursue. Any question? Okay, we see this example here is very, very, very similar to what I was saying. They're using future value, present value, net present value to assess different projects. They have different projects. One project will give you returns in 4 years, in 3 years, in 2 years, in 1 year, and basically to help you examine what projects give better return. The one that have a better return, but at the initial stage, the net flow is very low. It's negative. We will now see year 1, they start making money, 400. Year 2, they start making 800. Year 3, they making 600 is dropping. But year 4, they stay patient and they're now making 1,200. This is how you wanted to calculate to make decision, to make this investment making sense. Organizations sometimes use what we call organization strategic objective to decide what project they wanted to embark on. So, and our framework is called Objective Key Results, OKR. I don't know whoever heard the word before. Organization can say we have 3 OKR. OKR no 1 wanted to establish online application. OKR 2 wanted to establish online payment. OKR 3 wanted to establish analysis to examine all our data. So that's organization objectives. Now you now say we're going to take objective number 1, which is online application for our business. So you start that project. You come up with a journey map, how you're going to pursue it, you plan it, and you break them down. Now, incremental value delivery approach is basically saying, okay, instead of me using a combination of OKR, I wanted to decide how do I get value for my business? What can I do simultaneously? What can I do in parallel? So this is where you wanted to use adaptive approach or predictive approach simultaneously or independently. So apply them when it's necessary to deliver value faster, higher value returns to your end user. And welcome feedback, because feedback will help you improve and get better over time. And that concludes that aspect. Do you guys still think we should have break or we'll continue? I'm hearing continue. Okay.
Yep.
All right, organization culture and change. I was saying earlier, we are change managers. We are change managers because everywhere we come, we bring change, we bring improvement, we add value, we make things better. And for you to do that, you need to understand the concept of change management according to PMI. So as you embrace change, you welcome change, you implement change into your business activities. So for you to do that, we were talking about the same line, organization environment, business environment. For you to implement change, you have to know your environment. Who are the people? What is the leadership approach right now? Who is the influencers? Who are the authority? Who are the people that you need to talk to first? Those are the things you wanted to know and assess. How do you apply your changes? How do you implement your projects? So based on your evaluation, you make recommendation and you apply your recommendation. And you continue to monitor that to see, okay, what I'm applying, is it working or is not working? So get to know your organizational culture and style, which is what I said, the leadership, the hiring process, what is the code of ethics, environmental approach, procedural policies, what is actually that can help you understand the organization. Do they have motivational environment that employee have opportunity to step to the next ladder? And those are the things that help organization to build culture. Is it a culture people leave every 1 year? Is it a culture people stay there, they work there for 5, 6, 7 years, and they retire there? Do they have retention program to train people to make them better? Those are the things you look into when you even wanted to accept the project as a project manager. You see, is it a fit place for you as individual, and also is a fit for you as a professional? So looking into all that, you can now start applying and look into how to implement change. So you have to look into what we call threshold. Threshold is where you have limitations. How do you monitor and manage that threshold? If your leadership saying everything stop at me, I wanted to get involved in everything you're doing, you know that's a risk you have to look into, because that's a risk. If you have a micromanager who wanted to be everywhere at one time, if every decision has to come to him or her, you wanted to know all those culture, because that's a culture that's consigning, that will delay your project. It will make you look bad as the project manager, because if every decision has to go through one channel, and that one channel is only one person and is wanted to know everything, is not empowering people, is not giving people opportunity to diversify and collaborate, and also delegate the role to other people. So it make things run properly. We wanted to pay attention to those things, how the team structure also runs, influence authority, influence power within the organization. So those are the things as a project manager you wanted to look into while you're managing change. This acronym is going to help you to do change management. Awareness, desire, knowledge, ability, reinforcement. Awareness of your environment, desire to support change. You have to find influencer that is really desired. If I don't have a support from the leadership, higher top down, that change I wanted to apply will be difficult, because if you don't have support system, you won't be able to do it. Now, after that, you need a knowledge how to apply changes and the ability to do so. Then reinforce those changes to make sure it works. Here's do's and don'ts if you wanted to implement change. For you, you have to collaborate, operate with coaching and keep your knowledge current, have a knowledge improvement on lesson learned, but you don't want to force change. You don't want to become a change that create conflicts or problems within an organization. You have to find a way to make things work, and that aligns to co-create with people. Less people come together. Let's say, this is us, this is our environment, this is our organization. Those mindset of openness and co-creation and collaboration that will help people to be part of that ownership of that process you are creating, or organization or team you are creating. Plan for change is an attitude and information campaign. Change does not happen one day because the organization that are operating with that culture did not happen overnight. So change actually takes time, and it takes consistency across the board of the organization. You have to look into, how do I plan this? What step do I do do we do communication and kind of talk about how we're doing it right now? What is our pain points? What is our concern within the organization? Let people freely talk. You can do an anonymous survey to kind of gather information to see, how do people actually feel about the project right now, feel about the organization right now. And you can do it anonymously in case people don't want to show their face or put their name on the thing. So you can get a valuable input to help you understand the framework of the mind of the people you are dealing with. So for organization, and this is everything I've been talking about. We do voluntary campaign, you use ADAC to apply that, to implement your transition of culture. And culture, everywhere you find people, there's culture. Everywhere there's culture, there's people. Those two go together. People and culture, people create culture, and culture even make people. So if I am not a vegetarian and I'm in a desert, only people that are there is vegetarian. Or even though I'm not vegetarian, over time for the next couple of months, I will be vegetarian because that is the environment I found myself. That's the culture changing me. And likewise, I can come there with a mindset, I wanted to change those people from vegetarian to openness to eat all kinds of food. And I have to bring some things to influence that over time. And that is where culture change management also come together. Okay, we're going to finish strong for this phase, and then we'll take a break. So the other one is called project governance, and the other one, which I'm going to cover, is project compliance. So governance, which is where I already talk about templates, life cycle, strategic, organization best practice, a template they are using. Do they have PMO? I was saying PMO like coordinator, or do they have channel how to start a project, plan project, execute, monitor and control, or close the project? Those are your governance. You look into procedure, process, policies. How do they communicate? What is the tools they are using with the organizations? So those are your governance you master. I'm not going to spend time with it because I think I already said a lot about governance. Unless, do anyone have a question about governance? So I wanted to speak on the governance, define escalation procedure. I know a lot of us might go to the store and you talk to a cashier say, oh, I cannot make those changes. And then you ask for, can I speak to manager? Or can I speak to someone that can make those changes? And now what you are doing at that point, you are escalating. Because people you are actually working with at that time, they are working within their parameters. They can't go beyond that. So now you wanted to extend that tolerance to the next level, and that is where manager can influence change. That's where project manager can influence change. So when you now get to that threshold and that tolerance, you have to look for ways to escalate issues when you have them. And so when you come in to start a project, you have to find a way to collaborate, sync, and let the person that have influence and authority to be on your side so your project can go forward. Anytime you have shortage about budget, shortage about resources, shortage about supporting system from other agency or from other external services, you have a escalation procedure somewhere to help you get to the next step. And this is where it's very crucial. So think about escalation anytime you run to a problem and you have authority, and then you have to go through certain length of authority to help you get things going. So I'll talk about project governance life cycle. Of course, you start a project, you execute, you plan, you execute, and monitor. You have those phases within that life cycle of delivering projects. And you doing that either in predictive or adaptive nature, and you wanted to make it smooth work in accordance of that development approach or whatever project management approach you are utilizing. And that is what we call system view. You have a clear path, how you wanted to run your team, how you wanted to manage your team or manage your projects. So governance SharePoint, basically saying for waterfall, which is predictive, we have things in phases. If I have my foundation before I do my physical structure, I'll have that done. I get my permit. That's phases. We do things in phases. But in adaptive nature, we do things by release. iPhone release iPhone 3 first before they release 4, they release 5, 6, and so on and 14. That is released because they are using adaptive approach, making updates, changing updates, fixing bugs, and continually evolving. But in predictive approach, once you build a structure of a property, that's why you have housings in Baltimore and other county or in other city in the other country that has been built for over 100 years and they're still there because that's a phase. They build it in phases and it stayed there. Now, what you do, you can still come there and renovate those houses using, adaptive approach, which is now combining adaptive with predictive, which is now hybrid. And this is where you now think about what I was saying earlier about phase gate. I was talking about governance gate or key point or toll gate earlier. So it's the same thing here as for checkpoint for phases. If you're using predictive approach, you are more likely to use phases. But if you're using adaptive, you are more likely to use. I'm releasing my first working software we call beta software to test it out, get feedback, and make some corrections, and then continue that process in a cycle. Continue elaboration, continue iteration, delivery, and over time till you finalize your product. While you're doing it, you can, if you're doing phases, I was saying earlier, you start, which you initiate a project, you can plan and execute at the same time. If you want to, it's up to you. And you can monitor and execute at the same time, simultaneously. It's called sequential overlapping relationship. Depending how your team are structured within the organization, you can apply your way of working in the environment you find yourself. So you can determine how things will work and how you're going to approach things. So the next one is which is last part of starting the project. The foundation is project governance. Project compliance, sorry. So for compliance, every project I was saying earlier, external factor, which is enterprise external factor, enterprise environmental factor, operation process assets. Those two, one is internal, one is external. Those are your compliance. For the internal aspect, of compliance with the organization policy, organization process, step 1, step 2, organization procedure or best practice or what framework or tools or software we use it to do certain things. We want it to be in compliance. Do we have coordination called project management office that help us put all this together as a centralized location or decentralized approach to make sure your delivery of your results of a project in compliance. So compliance could be legal, because by law, you have to do certain things, or regulatory from the government agency, you have to do certain things. I was put in compliance to go get building permit because I was doing certain things not in compliance, and that's regulatory and that's also legal. And you can if you break those things, you get fined or punishable by law. So those are the things. If you have a privacy, there's a privacy hat that protect personal identifiable information, PII. You have to protect that no matter where you find yourself in private sector, public sector, or quality control. You wanted to deliver a product. You wanted to make sure there's safety. You don't want to deliver something that will burn people. If you are creating a lotion, you want to make sure you test your lotion that is not burning skin or making skin terrible, or rather is making it better. Those are the quality control. So those are compliance, could be environmental, could be political, could be legal, whatever aspect that relates to your projects. Now, if you are not in compliance, of course, it will lead to inspection, safety issue challenges. If you see some vehicle, automobile, they do compliance checks and also what is it called? Quality assurance, quality control by doing what they call recall. If you receive or buy a car from a Toyota or these big companies, they can do what they call recall for your brake, recall for specific, because they discover something and it's challenged to safety, and they have to do that. And once they do that, it costs nothing to the end user because it's their own fault. And likewise, if you see phone, you see update on your phone over time because they discover new bugs or someone trying to access your phone, taking over your privacy. All those things have to tighten their security system to make sure those things working that it's supposed to. So you do that to examine how things are functioning at the same time through inspection and to check, make sure that quality policy in place using quality control or quality surveillance plan or quality assurance, whatever approach your organization decided to do. And when you identify quality, you have to assign quality manager. So it's quality manager that will help you oversee the quality in terms of documentation, planning the risk, making sure we're in compliance, doing the auditing and inspection, and that we keep your organization in good shape. These are called 5 best practices of compliance. So this is end of lesson 1. We have one more lesson to end this class for today. I want us to give us break. Can we come back at 1 p.m. Eastern time? That's about 12 minutes from now. I'm going to stop the recording. And then we're going to finish strong.